You know what, man? I'm so sick of this bullshit. What, I'm supposed to apologize for my family leaving me money? All I ever wanted to be was a cop. I get up early and I take it to the max every day. I'm the first guy through the door and I'm always the last guy to leave the crime scene. So you know what? Fuck you and fuck them and fuck everybody who got a problem with Mike Lowrey.
I am a Bad Boys fan. I saw the first Bad Boys movie on VHS. And when I first saw it, I enjoyed it. I loved it as a kid. But I just watched it again recently, and it doesn't hold up as much for me as it used to. Like, it still hits me with nostalgia, but I don't love it as much as I used to. I think it has some problems. So I think the first Bad Boys movie is okay.
Hey, what's the Spurs for?
The roaches.
Roaches? We got rats.
Say what?
That's not gonna be an issue. We can handle that. We'll just have to slightly adjust our approach a little bit.
No. I don't mess with no rats.
Hey, stop it. We're in. Get your head right.
Man, I'm a grown-ass man.
Well, get your grown-ass self together and let's do this.
Bad Boys 2. Bad Boys 2, to me, is better than the first movie. Now, when I first saw Bad Boys 2, I didn't remember the movie. I thought it was okay. But now I think Bad Boys 2 is a good movie and it's better than the first one. I find Bad Boys 2 to be a lot funnier. It's more action-packed. That's pretty much it.
I'm about to throw up. Oh, you bet to hell not. That is hand-stitched leather. You better drink it.
Bad Boys for Life. I was anticipating this movie, and I watched Bad Boys 1 and 2 to prepare for this movie, and like I said, I think the first Bad Boys movie is okay, and the second Bad Boys movie is good. And so with Bad Boys for Life, I was excited. It made me feel nostalgia again. This is the first Bad Boys movie I'm seeing in the theater because I was too young to see the previous two in the theater. So I was nervous and excited because it's like, okay, it's not Michael Bay. Michael Bay directed the first two and he's not directing this one. So I was nervous about, are the directors going to try and copy Michael Bay and it's going to be like a Michael Bay movie ripoff? Or is it going to be its own thing? Bad Boys for Life brings back Martin Lawrence and Will Smith as Marcus Burnett and Mike Lowrey.
Hello? This is Mike Lowrey.
He doesn't talk that way. Talk like him, like him. Try to talk sexy.
Come on.
He doesn't sound sexy enough.
Damn.
And we go back to the parallels of Bad Boys 2, where Marcus Burnett wants to retire, while Mike Lowrey wants to turn up and bust down bad guys until he is 100. And I found that to be a very interesting dynamic in this movie. And it's a thing that has been continuously going on in this series from the first two movies, where in the first movie, Marcus doesn't know how to drive, and then by the end, he learns how to drive.
You know, you drive almost slow enough to drive Miss Daisy. Slow ass driving. Driving like a bitch.
Seemed like that gunshot wound has improved your driving skill. Either, baby, it's gonna be him or it's gonna be us. You better fucking win. That's all I know. You better win. Better win. Now that's how you supposed to drive. From now on, that's how you drive.
Then in the second movie, he doesn't know how to shoot, and then by the end of that movie, he knows how to shoot. But at the same time, he's like, I want to transfer. I don't want to be your partner anymore.
Hey, dude, for real. I'm straight with all your spiritual enlightenment and all that shit, but I need to know if a crackhead roll up behind me with a 9, you gonna cook that fool.
No question about it. Shoot him in the leg.
Come on with that leg shit.
Everybody deserves a little dignity.
What about my dignity? Your crackhead gonna be missing a kneecap. I'm gonna be in a body bag.
Now that's how you supposed to shoot. From now on, that's how you shoot. Whoa! Oh, I want my next partner to shoot just like that.
I ain't cut out for this, man.
Come on, man. I can't do this with you right now.
I'm reevaluating what's important.
About what? Being a cop?
No, about you being my partner. Once we nail Tapia, you and me, we're over. I already signed my transfer papers.
Hey, so you real serious about this transfer thing, huh? I mean, you've been quitting for 10 years. I just always thought it was, you know, how you dealt with all this shit.
It's what's best for me and my family.
What? Smell yourself right now, because this moment is what the fuck is wrong with you.
You know what, Mike? I got the transfer papers in the trash can. I'll go get them and glue them the fuck up.
Glue them up, Marcus. What? You want some glue?
And then we don't be partners no more.
I got glue in the car.
I'm talking to you. It's hot than a motherfucker. I feel like I'm cooking in this mother, and I gotta hear some shit out of you. And then on top of that shit, you gonna dog my baby sister.
So then in this movie, he's really old. And I like the fact that this movie mentioned that. It played up on the fact that these two are older now. It's been a very long time since the previous movie. They're not bad boys anymore. They're grown men. And the movie is self-aware, and it lets you know this, that these aren't boys anymore. But Mike is in a position in his life where you could say he's suffering a crisis where he doesn't want to accept the fact that he's getting older, while Marcus has a granddaughter now. And there's a funny moment at the beginning of this movie, because this movie just kicks off into high gear with this awesome music, and the visuals are amazing, and I'm just immediately sucked in. As soon as the movie started, I had a big smile on my face. I'm like, this is fun, this is exciting. We're right back in the driver and passenger seat with these two characters that we love, if you love the first two movies. And opening scene is great. It's kind of weird because all that was just to go see Marcus's granddaughter, but Marcus has a granddaughter. And he says, you know, we got many years behind us than in front of us. And then Mike is like, no, I'm going to be busting down bad guys till I'm 100. And so there's this parallel between the two. And that's always been the factor with these movies. And there's a really nice scene in here where Marcus and Mike, after Marcus sees his grandbaby, and he's like, the baby. It's really funny. There's a scene where Mike says, okay, we're going to run. And if I win, we'll be bad boys for life. And if I lose, we can just stop doing all of this. And they're like, okay, cool. And I felt that moment because they're friends. So then they start running, and then it turns really tragic where Mike gets shot. And I felt that emotionally. It made me cry. And I felt that. And it hit me and my emotions really hard. It blew my mind. I did not see that coming. Also, we have our villain in here, and our villain is badass. It's set up like the generic villain plot. You know, you got your villain in here, and they're doing some things, and they illustrate this villain to be a badass. Like, you see him doing all these weird, like, moves and killing people and stuff, and I'm like, okay, that's interesting. But when I first saw the villain, I thought of one of two things. I was like, okay, it could end up being your generic movie where you set up your villain and your heroes, and by the end your heroes take down the bad guy, and that's it. But then there could also be something else, you know, I don't know what, but it could be something interesting. But then when Mike got shot, that really shook me. That made me cry. It made me feel all sorts of emotions that I did not expect from a Bad Boys movie. So then we have the sequence where Mike is getting surgery, and Marcus is saying to God that I will never bring any more violence into this world as long as you let Mike live. And I felt that because we've been with these guys for so long. And to see Mike in the hospital like this, being shot, it's like, yeah, he's not bulletproof anymore. He's vulnerable. He's human just like the rest of us. So I felt that. And it made sense why Marcus retired, because he's like, man, I was praying and he came back. And, you know, so all that stuff with Mike being in the hospital and Marcus saying I'm retired, it all made sense, and it was great. Hit me emotionally, and it made me cry. But then, you know, it goes back into, you know, movie territory where it's like, okay, we got to keep the ball rolling here. So the effects of Mike being shot don't last very long, because then they do this trickery thing where it makes you think, oh, we're at Mike's funeral, when, you know, really we're not at Mike's funeral. But it plays it up like that when really we're seeing Reggie, the returning character from Bad Boys 2, getting married to Marcus's daughter. And then Mike's being pushed in a wheelchair, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. Where are they gonna go with this? But then Mike, he just stands up and he gives a speech, and I'm like, okay, you know, it felt real when Mike got shot. And I was like, what are they gonna do with this? And it was interesting how it's set up, but then how they kind of just throw it away. I'm like, okay, it's a movie, you gotta keep the story going. So it made sense, but I do wish they could have played up more on Mike being vulnerable. And because him getting shot, it hit me emotionally, and I was like, they could have done more with that. But you know, you got to keep the ball rolling here, so I let it go. The movie, it just keeps going and going and going. But it's interesting because of Will Smith and Martin Lawrence and their chemistry. They work really, really well together. But you got the villain in here, and at first it's just a generic villain, but he looks badass because he's killing fools left and right. He recruits this gangster dude because he kills all these guys, and he's like, you're not going to set me up. But then we learned that the main guy, Armando, the villain, he has a mom, and his mom wants revenge on Marcus. Or not Marcus, she wants revenge on Mike and all of these other people that sent her husband to jail and sent her to jail. And so we have the son who shoots Mike, and he's supposed to kill him last, so the mother's upset with him. And then he goes back to killing all these other dudes. And then Mike is, you know, since he's out of he's out of the hospital, then the Armando guy sends this viral video. I guess he was recording the footage of him shooting Mike, and it just goes viral. And Mike, in his ego, he's like, man, this dude don't want no smoke, this dude don't want to turn up, this dude. And at first when he was saying that stuff, I was like, what the fuck? Like, you're old, dude. Like, that, I'm old enough to know that, yeah, young people in high school say that. You being 50 or something like that, it sounds weird, you know? But it makes sense for his character because he's that guy who's old, but he still wants to be young. Whereas Marcus, he's like, yeah, man, you can't do that, man. He even says, like, turn up. What are you talking about? You know? So I'm glad the movie is self-aware about that stuff. The movie knows what it is and it knows what it's doing. But you feel Mike's pain when he's like, I'm going to get this dude. I'm going to smoke this dude. But then Marcus is like, I can't help you because I made a promise to God. So then Mike, the movie really gets interesting when Mike goes on his revenge quest. He goes on his revenge quest and he meets DJ Khaled and he gets some answers from him. Then we meet this division called Ammo with Vanessa Hudgens and all these other people. And at first I assumed that, it's just going to be these side characters and they're not really going to do much in the movie. But no, they were a bigger part of the movie than I thought they were going to be. And if they do a sequel, I'm pretty sure we'll get more backstory with these people, because in this movie we don't get much backstory with them. We get like a little bit of backstory with one of the guys, but we don't really know any of these people. They're just here, they're a part of Ammo, they're the younger, you know, musical boy band of the police division, whatever. But, you know, it starts off with Mike having some friction with them, but then eventually they're like, okay, we can use your help and all this stuff. But we see Mike on his revenge quest, he gets some information, and there's this one scene. What I noticed is that there isn't a whole lot of action in this movie. It focuses more on the revenge and the emotion between these characters and Mike wanting to get revenge, which was intriguing to me. Because when we do see an action sequence after all of this drawn out revenge stuff, we see this action scene where Mike is eager to like go in there in this raid. The dude, there's no money in that bag, so then he goes in there and he puts his vest on, and Ammo's like, no, don't go in there. And he goes in there, and he doesn't go in there guns blazing. He goes in there very strategic. He shoots this canister and it explodes with all this pink dust, and it's very visually stunning. And he comes in there and he starts shooting some people, and then he tries to save the target that he's supposed to grab. But then, you know, he does all this action stuff, and then shit goes wrong, and his target ends up dying. And Will Smith is such a good actor, because then when the dude his target accidentally died, he's like trying to ask him questions, but then this girl he has a pass with is like, the dude is dead. So I felt, even though there's not a whole lot of action in this movie, I did feel the revenge part of this movie about Mike being shot, and made me cry, and then him wanting to be like, I want to nab this guy. So I felt that emotionally. And the only negative thing I can say about the revenge portion of this movie is that I don't think they gave enough to Martin Lawrence's character, Marcus. We do see some parallels of their lives where Mike, he's going on his revenge, he's loading up his guns, he's putting his clothes on, he's going on his quest to find out who shot him. And then Marcus is at home, ceiling fan isn't working, he's dancing, you know, just relaxing because he's enjoying his retirement. but there wasn't enough going on with Marcus's character. I do wish that they would have shown more of his family life and his home life, because at the beginning of the movie, there's the action scene and all that was to get to the hospital to see his granddaughter. And I thought the granddaughter was going to have more to do in this movie, where Marcus will interact with her more. But they didn't really do anything with that. We only see the baby at the beginning, the middle, and the end of the movie. And, you know, I really wish they would have given Martin Lawrence more to do, where we see Mike going on his revenge quest. We could have seen Marcus being at home, interacting with his wife, trying to get his quality time as always, interacting with his kids, interacting with his grandbaby. They could have had some elements in there where the daughter has to go to school, she's going to college or something, and then she's like, you know, Dad, can you watch the baby? And he watches the baby and he's trying to, you know, feed the baby, but the baby won't eat the food. Like, they could have done more with that. I feel like they gave more to Will Smith in here, which makes sense because, you know, it's his story. He's the one who got shot. He's the one who's on the revenge quest, and they do the parallels of their different lives, where Mike is loading up his guns and Marcus is getting a burrito or whatever out of the microwave and all that stuff. So that stuff was interesting, but I do wish they gave more to Marcus and showed more of his home life. And I thought that how Marcus and Mike came back together was kind of, it just felt weird, because they got a call from this guy, and he's like, the guy who shot Mike is following me. And I'm like, okay, it could be a setup. And then Marcus is like, okay, I'll find out what's going on. And at first I was like, okay, Mike's going to go to the location and he's going to get shot or something, and there's going to be something with that. But no, he did the smart thing. He called Mike, and then Mike is like, Marcus is a quitter, so there's some friction between the two. But then he's like, I'm trying to help you out. And there's this one funny scene where Marcus tells Mike to drop the baby off at the spa, and it's a very funny visual where he opens the door and Mike tries to set the baby down, and the baby sees, and then the wife sees Mike and is like, I'm gonna kill him, and all that stuff. So that was funny. Then they go to the location, then the guy falls out of the window, and it's weird. People are just walking by like it's nonchalant. And then, you know, we got the funny moment where he's like, my wife always knows. And then all of a sudden, Mike and Armando fall out of the window, and it's an over-the-top action movie, but, you know, just let it go. It's cool, because I'm like, he fell from that height. He should have broke some bones. But whatever. Keeps going. I'm interested. And then we got our fight scene, and then Armando gets away. Mike, Marcus, and Ammo work together to try and bring down Armando. They go to the gangster guy who was recruited by Armando. They try to nab him during his birthday, but the gangster escapes. Then they have this chase sequence. And the only negative thing I can say about this movie is you can tell that there's a lot of CGI, there's a lot of green screen going on here. Like during this chase scene, there's a lot of green screen. You can tell it's green screen. But you're enjoying the banter between Martin Lawrence and Will Smith so much that you can ignore that. So it's just a little minor nitpick thing. It doesn't mean anything, but it's obvious. Then once there's the shootout, and then they get on this bike that has a little seat for Martin Lawrence's character, and then they're talking during this chase, and you can tell that it's complete green screen. And it's not really distracting because they're not focusing on the action, they're not focusing on the surroundings, they're focusing on these two characters and their banter, which I think is exceptional, and that's what they should do. So it's like, even though the green screen is obvious, as long as you're not paying attention to it and you're focusing on what the directors want you to focus on, you'll be okay. But we got this chase sequence, then the helicopter comes out of nowhere. Then Armando shoots this rocket launcher and shit blows up, and then it's like convenient that the motorcycle detaches. But then I was worried for Marcus, like, oh, he's gonna hit something, he's gonna hurt himself. But then Mike made sure that didn't happen. Then Mike has his action scene where he runs and he jumps and he grabs the ladder and chasing the gangster and Armando. And then it's kind of silly because then Armando ends up shooting the gangster in the face, and it's like you revealed yourself in public and shooting a rocket launcher trying to save this gangster, and you end up just killing him. But he kills the gangster, and then Armando says something in Spanish to Mike, and then Martin Lawrence shoots the minigun and distracts Armando from killing Mike, and then Mike falls into the water. And then it's revealed that Armando is Mike's son. And it's kind of sudden. But then it was interesting because then, like I said, at first I thought the movie was going to go in the generic direction where we set up our villain, we set up our heroes. By the end of the movie, the hero and the villains fight, and the good guys save the day. Generic setup. But it was interesting, and I welcomed the twist. As silly as it was, and as silly as it was set up, and how rushed it felt, it was a welcome plot twist for me in this movie. Because then it made me think, okay, how is this movie going to end? You know, because now it can't just end in the generic fashion. So how are they going to end this? So I was intrigued by that. So then we have our final moment. They go to the crazy woman's house, Mike's baby mama, and they have their confrontation. And then Ammo shows up, and there's this big shootout. And at first it felt boring, because it's like, man, you know, you watch the Michael Bay movies. It's like you watch Bad Boys 2. The action is very high octane. And in this movie, the action is kind of toned down. Like I said, there's not a whole lot of action in this movie. It focuses more on the revenge plot, which is great because I was emotionally invested in that. But then when you see the action, it's like the directors aren't necessarily focusing on the action. And I'm thinking maybe that's because of the budget. Like, this movie's only $90 million. And it's a good movie, but then it's like, you look at the first one, it was only $23 million. And it's like, the action in that one is better than this movie. And Bad Boys 2, that was like $100 million or something. And the action in that was better than this. So it's like, is it the budget? Is it because this movie came out so many years later? I don't know. The action is great when it happens, but they're not very memorable action scenes. It's mostly the characters and the banter and the revenge plot that is mostly interesting to me. And Mike being shot. And then also the captain. The captain gets shot. Dude, when the captain got shot, I gasped. I was like, oh man, like when the captain got shot, he got shot in the neck. It's like he gives this powerful speech to Mike about revenge. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he just gets shot in the neck. And I felt it, and I'm glad this movie's rated R. Because as minimal amount of action as they have, the violence feels real. You see the blood and the gushing and all that. It feels like real violence. So when the captain got shot, I felt that. In the movie, like I said, it constantly just hits these beats and it keeps going. So when the captain got shot, in the moment, I felt it. But then as it keeps going, it's like, okay, now you forget about that. So I wish they could have, like, you know, made that mean something a little bit more. But it did mean something in the moment. So, but we got to keep this going. So we reach the end of the movie. Mike's baby mama and Mike have a confrontation. Ammo shows up. We have a good, interesting shootout for the most part. Some interesting shots in there. And then we reach our confrontation between Mike and Armando. Son versus father. Young versus old. And they have their fight. And at first I was like, okay, Armando, it's going to be an interesting challenge for Mike. Because how they set up Armando, he's like the fucking Terminator. Rev 9 from Terminator Dark Fate. Where he's just fucking wiping people out with, like, fucking faster than Bruce Lee. And I was like, it's gonna be an interesting challenge for Mike. And so I was like, but the generic thing is like, okay, Mike is gonna win because it's a movie and all this stuff. And he did win, but then it's like, they kind of ended like Winter Soldier, where Mike is like, you're my son, I'm not gonna fight you or whatever. And so Armando just starts wailing on Mike. And then the baby mama comes in and she shoots her son in the shoulder. And then there's an explosion. Marcus falls over the edge, but then Armando helps Mike pull Marcus up. And then at the very end, during the credits, they set up for Bad Boys 4, where they bring in Armando and it's like, I got a job for you. So it's kind of the same thing what they did with Jason Statham, where Jason Statham in Fast Furious movies, he killed Han and now he's a good guy. But I think it's set up better in this, because yeah, he killed a bunch of innocent people and he's like, I'm gonna pay my debt to society. And he's like, that's my son. And you do see him in a cage at the end, and then Mike comes and he's like, I got a job for you and you can help pay your debt to society. We don't know what the job is, because I'm pretty sure they weren't sure if they were gonna make a fourth one. But just in case this movie is successful, and from what I hear, it's crushing at the box office, rightfully so, because it is a very entertaining movie. They set up for a fourth movie, but we don't know what the stakes are going to be in that one. But yeah, I'm interested in the fourth one. This movie, it hit all the right emotional beats for me. It had just enough action with the revenge plot. There's not a whole lot of action in here. I think there's more action in the first one and the second one than in this one. This focuses more on the characters and the revenge plot and the dynamics between Ammo and Mike and Marcus, and I enjoyed that aspect of the movie. I will say that Bad Boys for Life, to me, is the best out of the three. Overall, Bad Boys for Life is a good movie. It's a good movie. It's fun. It's entertaining. I love Will Smith in this movie playing Mike. I'm interested in watching Bad Boys 4. Hopefully it's just as good, if not better. It's a really entertaining, fun thrill ride with two characters, Martin Lawrence and Will Smith, that act very well together. They have very great chemistry. And that's all I have to say. So as always, thank you for watching, and I will talk to you next time.